Hello, everyone. Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to remind you that my book, Drummers on Drumming, is available now on Amazon as both a paperback and an ebook. Based on the Big Fat Five segment of this podcast, where I sit down with my favorite drummers to discuss the 5 records and stories that shaped their approach to the instrument, this book is packed with insights from the drummers who redefined how we think about the modern drum set. You can grab your copy now by checking the link in this episode's show notes or simply searching Drummers on Drumming on Amazon. So thank you for all the support, and now let's get into the show. What is up? Welcome back to Drummers on Drumming, a podcast powered by Big Fat Snare Drum. We're back with another episode of The Drum Panel, and I have my co-host, Eric Urea, and the other is one of my closest friends, Mike Robinson, 2 great drummers, and we get into some heavy stuff, and I get pretty vulnerable in this episode. So please listen. You're already listening. Please continue to listen. I love you, and I hope this episode helps some people. So cheers. I am looking at the master list that I sent to Mike last night because Mike was begging me. He's like, dude, I'm so afraid I'm going to say something stupid. So he forced me to send him. So he's going to have a little bit of a leg up on some of this stuff today.
Listen, I tried not to look too deep into it, but I was like, I need to at least have somewhat of an idea of what we could be talking about.
Yeah, I mean, before the final, I'm screwed.
I mean, this thing has kind of evolved into, I don't know, just drum shop talk. And I mean, I have access to the numbers, so in no way are people dropping off with the less controversial hot takes. So I think people just like the fact that, nothing against Big Fat Five, it's obviously, I love that, but a lot of times I'm meeting people online 10 minutes before I push record. So even if we end up being friends later, the chemistry is not immediately there. So I think people like the drum panel because I always bring on people that we already know each other. That being said, Mike and Eric just met 5 minutes ago. Hey! So I'm going to shut up. I guess it's all about me as always. But
charming and shitty.
Yeah, that's what the podcast should have been changed to. Well, I started off with Neil and Eric Lederman last time with this question, and I thought it was fun. So if there was one piece or maybe 2 pieces of gear that throughout musical, maybe not even recorded history, but just musical history, that you would want to have that piece of gear, what would that be?
Man, I think the first thing that comes to mind is like such an easy and iconic one for me is the...
Could we guess?
Yes, guess it.
I was going to say the Terminator.
No, even easier than that. The Ringo kit.
Oh, like the Ed Sullivan one.
When I was a kid, that's what a drum kit was to me. You know, like that finish, the look, the setup, the 2 crashes or 2 cymbals, whatever was Ringo using 2 crashes or was it 2 I don't even know. That was just like, that's what a drum set was to me. And I didn't have that, but I was like, one day I'll have something like that. You know,
on a 15-foot riser.
Dude, that's
so high.
Have you ever seen like it's so sketchy looking too?
Oh, and there's no drum rug too, so like he could have
just
killed
like
John
flopping around up there.
Yeah,
I think that's like the first. I feel like any answer involving Ringo always feels like a cop out to me, but that's like the first thing that comes to mind.
It's not though. I know what you mean.
I know it's not.
That feels like the right answer. It's hard to pick anything other than that.
It's so iconic.
Well, and I don't mean to call Eric out, and I'll be honest this time. I know Eric said in the past that he obviously appreciates and loves the Beatles. We're going to let you talk in a second, Eric, but for the time being, be quiet. Sorry, it's just me and Mike just talking the whole time. Yeah. No, but Eric's not as big of a fan, I guess, outwardly as you and me, Mike. So for even Eric to admit that, it just shows how obvious of a correct answer that is.
Yeah, I think it's undeniable. Like, that kit is so iconic.
What about you, Eric?
Probably the St. Anger snare is what I would go for. No,
I know you're joking, but that would be kind of sick.
I think there's going to be a day when people are like, "Oh, that snare sound was actually sick," and I think we're getting closer.
I think it might be that day for me.
It's coming around.
I really think it's going to be a complete 180 where people stop making fun of it, and it's going to be like, "Oh, I actually," and maybe that's all in jest or irony. I don't know, but.
Yeah, there was like a good 5-year period where if you didn't have any muffling on your snare drum at all, people would be like, St. Anger snare?
Yeah.
What is that?
Totally.
It's like, no, it's just what a drum sounds like. I don't know.
What's your answer, Ben? Oh, wait, we didn't get your real answer yet, Eric. Sorry.
I don't know if I have a real. I mean, I guess sort
Josh
of in
frees
that
his
same.
head on a platter just so you can hang out with him all day.
Dude, yeah.
That's in a good way. He loves Josh Freese, by the way.
Me too, man.
Yeah. Honestly, that kit that he used in the Judith music video, and it's like someone crazy directed it. It's like David Lynch or something. Like it's an
I wouldn't be
insane music
surprised.
video.
That's a really
Yeah,
niche
right.
answer.
Well, Ben kind of sent me on a spiral here. I don't know. I would sort of in the same vein as the Ringo answer. The classic Bonham kit would be
Yeah.
Which
the
one?
vibe too. I always think of the orange one, the
Sure.
orange acrylic
The
one.
Vistalite.
Yeah, the Vistalite.
I always see that photo. I don't know what show it's from. I'm sure it's noted on this photo somewhere, but he's playing that like just the straight maple like wood finish kit. And his rack tom just is never not funny to me because it's like the 14-inch rack, like 14 by 10 or something, and it is
out of
just so
control.
gigantic and looks so badass. Like it looks so cool.
I just saw the Becoming Led Zeppelin documentary a few weeks ago. And
I want to see that so bad.
It's so good. I mean, it's basically that it goes through the first 2 records. So it's all that early footage.
Which all happened in like a year. I was just talking to someone about, was I talking to you about this the other day?
Maybe.
I didn't realize until recently that like 1 and 2 were released within a year of each other. And then 3 was probably very shortly after. But that's crazy to think that all of that happened in a year. All right, what's your answer, Ben?
Well, let's see which one I want to cut out. So I'll say 2, and then I'll just take one away. No, I mean, if I'm being honest to myself as like the kid in a candy store, it might be the snare that was used on Enema of the State, just because
wow.
that record changed my life.
What was the snare?
I'm assuming it was in Orange County. Maybe
Yeah.
not. Maybe he wasn't working with Orange County. But I mean, it's just the most poppy, cutting through snare, and kind of changed my genre that I grew up in, pop punk, in a big way. You can say what you want about Blink and their stupid humor, but that record is actually what Travis did in the drums. It was extremely inventive.
Amazing.
But that's the probably honest answer. But the one that I would probably relate to more is that kind of red wine stained Camco kit that Jim Gordon used on all the like most of the records he did in LA.
Yeah.
So it'd be fun to have that kit. And Ben Barter, another friend, I'm assuming of Mike's as well, but he's Lord's live drummer, has a studio in LA. He's a great drummer. And he had access to, I believe, play that kit. It still exists
shit.
somewhere. Maybe the drum doctor has it, but he was able to play it, and he was just, I think he talked about it actually in the book. If you guys want to pick up the book, that wasn't a shameless plug on purpose, but he just talks about how it has a magic to it. There's that kit just makes you play a certain way. So
That's awesome.
also the Terminator. I mean, I know I guessed it was going to be yours, but
Yeah.
the Nirvana, Rage Against the Machine, obviously Black Album. Like, I mean, you and me, Mike, were lucky
Got to
enough.
play it.
We got to
Yeah.
play it.
That was one of the craziest days of my life. Just
Yeah,
playing
Eric.
that whole kit.
That's insane.
Gunnar Olsen was doing a promo for Loudon microphones, and they was like their tom mic, and so
Okay.
obviously they're like, let's think of a record that's known for their toms, the Black Album. So they flew Gunnar out and set up in the studio that the Black Album was created, which is in North Hollywood, and then set up the drums, the actual drums from that record, in the spot of the room where it was like,
It was amazing.
And then, of course,
That's
Gunnar,
insane.
being the nicest guy in the world, invited me and Mike over, and we got to, like, just what do you do with 15-inch rack tom? Just go, whatever.
Yeah.
It was
And-
nuts.
But of course, the Terminator was there. One of the 2 that they've used throughout the years, but I
Yeah.
think it was the one that was on the album. So
That's incredible.
And that drum was funny because I don't think it sounds great to the ear. Like, it sounds really good to your ear, but it's nothing special. But then hearing it in playback, like through a microphone, there's magic that happens once the sound leaves the drum.
the worst thing about that day is my photo that Gunnar took of me. I look so bad in the photo that I'm just like, I'm never gonna post this. I have some weird smile.
yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm obviously nervous, or maybe I'd just gotten done, so I was like breathing weird. But I turned around and it just, anyways, we all got stories. Am I right?
That was one of those things too. It was like, it felt wrong playing it. It feels like you're pulling something out of a display in the rock hall, and you're like, oh yeah, I'll just hit the
Yeah.
shit out of these. Like, felt really weird.
Yeah, I'd be like scared.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, I was really excited to have you on because I know you went on a little playful rant last week when Lollapalooza's lineup was made, and then I think
lost
there was
my
a
mind.
there was like maybe a Stereo Gum article where it's like, I guess Lollapalooza is officially not a rock festival. And another reason why I want to have Mike on is because Mike is a lover of rock and an appreciator of rock. But Eric, please talk about your argument against people saying that, well, there goes rock music.
Yeah, I have this long-standing beef with rock fans, of which I am one, that it's just there's so much gatekeeping in the rock community, and it just drives me absolutely bananas. And I just feel like there's so many artists nowadays that rock should be claiming, but they're just not. And I don't understand why. Like,
what do you think makes... Sorry to interrupt. Like, what do you think makes rock before we get too far into like your opinions of it?
Well, I would say most of it is just the attitude. Sure, there's traditional instrumentation, but that's not always what it is. I also want to emphasize this point about like genre classification is always kind of stupid to begin with. Mm-hmm. But I want to stress that this is to not get deep in the weeds about like, oh, all the subgenres, and this is, this isn't rock, it's soft rock. I'm talking about kind of what I refer to as like lowercase r rock, rock and roll. It's sort of a catch-all for everything from metal to, anything with just a little bit of attitude in it. And there's just so many artists nowadays that I think fall into the rock category, but usually get kind of pushed into pop. And to me, the perspective that I have is it always seems to be either female artists or artists with majority of a young female fan base. What kind of frustrated me about the Lollapalooza lineup is, to me, Olivia Rodrigo is a rock artist all day. I think she stays in the rock tradition. A lot of her albums have traditional rock instrumentation. A lot of those songs are very punk. There's even some I get industrial vibes in a lot of those. And to me, putting her in the same category as Sabrina Carpenter feels a little bit off to me. And same thing with someone like Billie Eilish, to me, has a ton of rock influence, especially that Where Do We Go When We Fall Asleep album. I'm butchering the title. But yeah, I just feel like there's so much rock influence, and to me, she's playing rock music. I'd say the same about Harry Styles. A lot of those Harry Styles records are just straight up rock records. There's so much 70s rock influence in there.
Do you think you can have rock music if there's no guitars?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the reference that I always use is 9 Inch Nails is my favorite band of all time. And how many of those songs are maybe just synthesizers, mm-hmm. Just really distorted, crazy sounds that are not necessarily guitars.
But they're kind of emulating guitars.
Right,
they're
sure.
filling a space that could be filled with guitars, and probably most of the time would be filled with guitars. 9 Inch Nails is also one of my, that's dream gig,
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Oh, damn, I thought we were going to have an argument here, and then you said something nice to him.
Oh, no.
I was like,
I'm gonna be way nicer than last time I was on here. I feel like last time was just all hot takes. Just me, you, Gunnar, and Neil.
Well, Gunnar and Neil will bring that out of it.
It brings out the worst. I will say I mostly disagree with you, Eric. Yeah.
Okay.
I had to pull this up on my phone as you guys were talking and look at the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
And if I look at any of the headliners, none of it except for Korn is rock to me,
But I mean, before we dive in further, how do you define rock?
I don't know. I sort of get what you're saying, Eric, but I would go a little further and say that what you're defining is when I would be oh, I see some punk in these people. I can see some punk in Olivia Rodrigo.
Sure.
There's straight up Elvis Costello references on her records and stuff,
Yeah.
I can see that. And Elvis Costello is you don't look at him and be oh, this is a punk artist. But there's something very punk about Elvis Costello.
Totally.
But I think that rock, if I'm looking at something and saying it's rock or not, I think it's way more cut and dry than the punk sort of ethereal attitude based thing where I Tyler, the Creator. It can be a very punk rock attitude.
Sure.
Olivia Rodrigo, definitely. A$AP Rocky, definitely. But I don't think any of those things would fall into rock for me. As dumb and meatheady as it is, I need to hear some guitars if I'm gonna be yeah, this is a rock song,
Sure.
And there's so many subgenres, and now it's like I don't even know anymore. Now I don't know what anything is.
Are we still talking about music?
Maybe I'm not.
I was
sure.
going to say, let's go down this rabbit hole. That's
I think that I would take what you're saying, Eric, and go a step further, and I would equate a lot of that to like punk, which is like, sure, it lives within the rock. It's punk rock, like it lives within the rock realm. But I think that that's way more attitude based, where I look at rock as like a product. You know, like an Olivia Rodrigo record to me is more about the finished product and the production of an Olivia Rodrigo record or a Harry Styles record. If I look on first listen, is a pop product solely based on production. I'm sure there's so much influence from everything in those records because those are all made by amazing writers and producers and musicians. So I don't know. I think it's way more cut and dry to me, you know?
No, I should state first off that I very much recognize that I'm deeply in the minority here.
Yeah.
But I most of this always stems from just the perspective of people always kind of decrying that rock is dead, and
I think
to
big
me it's
rock
like,
is dead.
I just feel like it's evolved into something else, and it just feels like the rock community as a whole is just missing it. Like I get what you're saying, and like there's certainly a lot of punk attitude, certainly in the hip hop realm these days. But
Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of why I wanted to like really point out that lowercase r rock and roll is kind of like the catch-all for all of the things that are punk. And I just view artists that are trying to be edgy and really outlandish and even keep traditional rock instrumentation in their songs, like Olivia Rodrigo or Billie Eilish. I have a hard time like putting them in the same box as like Ariana Grande or Katy Perry. Not to say that pop is a 4-letter word by any means, you know, but it feels like there's so much that rock fans can kind of be excited about right now in mainstream music, and it just feels like we're giving Grammys to legacy acts. Like the Beatles got a Grammy this year, Rolling Stones got a Grammy this year. It's like great for them, but like, come on, there's so much to showcase and give credit to, and it just feels like we're looking the wrong way. We're looking backwards.
You said something earlier. You said you feel like the people that admire the rock community or like go to like, you know, fit in that world or maybe missing this, but like I would argue that maybe people just don't like it and don't consider it rock. You know what I mean? Like I think everyone's aware of Olivia Rodrigo, but then I feel like there's so much happening under the surface that's maybe not like totally underground, but certainly not mainstream. And bands like Turnstile have like really helped to shine a light on like this band Angel Dust. I'm wearing their shirt right now. Like they
you look
are
really
like,
nice right now.
Thank you. They're like one of my favorite bands I've heard in forever. And like I want everyone who likes rock music to like listen to them and just be like, oh my God, like this shit does still happen. And it's just not happening on the scale that it once was, where like, you know, a band like Butthole Surfers would be gigantic. And like now I don't know if that would ever happen, a band like that being so big.
Yeah, I mean, my take on it isn't that rock or Lollapalooza isn't a rock festival anymore. And what I think is just like, I mean, maybe we can talk about this. What rock bands could headline Lollapalooza? Because at the end of the day, they have to sell tickets.
There's not a ton.
Money.
Like the Black Keys, the Killers.
The Killers did it last year.
Did they?
Yeah.
Okay. What was the look for the Black Keys?
I just don't know. I mean, they literally had to cancel their North American tour last year because they weren't selling tickets. So I'm just saying objectively, I'm not sure if they're big enough at the moment. Maybe they have a new record coming out. But they're kind of, you know, old news, I guess.
Well, it's so funny to like look at this.
And I love
like,
Black Keys.
I feel like you can count these bands on like 10 fingers. It's like two hands. You can count like the Queens of the Stone Age, 9 Inch Nails. Like there's
9 Inch Nails could headline.
For sure.
Sure.
Queens of Stone Age could headline.
I don't know.
I've seen. I saw them in 2014 do it. You know.
No, but they weren't the headliners.
They were at that. This was at Hangout in like 20. It must have been 2014, I think. I'm pretty sure they were headliners.
But I mean, no offense to Hangout. Hangout's not Lollapalooza. You know, I'm talking like
but,
Lollapalooza.
Yeah, I just don't like.
You know?
I think it's dwindling right now, and I hope that I've found, especially in the last few months, there's been like a lot of small bands that I've discovered. Like Gunner sent us that band Honing Barna, or however you pronounce it, and it straight up sounds like a fucking Refused record, and it just came out this year. Like, it's incredible. But you know, they probably play like 300 cap rooms everywhere. I just don't like. It's starting to feel like big box stores, you know. It's like,
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I want to take a quick second to shout out Shure's Nexodyne series of dynamic microphones. Unlike typical dynamics that use a single transducer, Nexodyne mics feature Shure's patented Revonic dual engine technology, which basically means that there are two transducers working together, with one wired out of phase to cut down on unwanted noise. Shure sent me a few to try out, one snare, two tom mics, and a kick mic. And honestly, the timing was perfect because I had to record an audition video. And without getting too geeky, these things cut down on a lot of bleed. The tom mics barely picked up the cymbals and had this pre-EQ'd quality that just sat right in the mix. The snare had shockingly low hi-hat bleed, and the kick was massive but punchy, almost like you had two mics. And it was ready to go. So these are clip them on and press record kind of mics. And just to be clear, they didn't pay me to say this, and I'd never endorse anything I didn't actually believe in. So, long story short, the audition asked for clarity and tone in the recording, and despite my drumming, I got the gig. So thanks to Shure's Nexodyne series, and that's not me just making up a story for this ad. It really did happen. So they're all under $300, and check them out at shure.com. That's SHURE.com. And I mean, come on. These are the people that made the SM57, the SM58, the 7B. They made the microphone I'm talking into right now. So check out the Nexodyne series at shure.com.
I mean, part of the reason that like spurred this whole thing for me is I just think. Have you guys listened to the new Lady Gaga record, for example?
No, but I saw her performance.
yeah, I've only heard what was on SNL.
I mean, to me, that lead single Abracadabra is like such a dance track to me, but that whole record is just so industrial. Like, even for her to have hired Tosh is such like a statement on the direction that she's going. And to me, it's like I can't help but feel like there's so many people trying to pick up the mantle and to take rock to new audiences, and it sometimes feels like it just gets shut out and categorized somewhere else. That's not to say that I think that Lady Gaga is a rock artist, but I do think that this album is a rock album. There's that Miley Cyrus record that came out a few years ago that was like, it had Billy Idol on it. It was super punk. I totally agree that there's the people that are doing the more traditional rock music are not going to be headlining Lollapalooza. But I ultimately feel like there's so much to just look forward to. Like, I'm curious to see in like 10, 20 years if we look back and we go, oh, Harry Styles was a rock artist, or, you know, whatever. If our perspectives change on this kind of thing.
I don't know what the answer is to this, but I do know that like my old man grumpy brain thinks that none of it is rock. Can I add one more quick thing that I don't know where this is going to take us?
Please.
I think that like characteristically in my life, when I look at rock bands, there's always something a little like quirky and weird and like off that's happening. You know what I mean? Like,
What do you mean?
well, okay, if we go back to like Butthole Surfers or something, you listen to that song Pepper, like that song was huge when I was a kid, and the lyrics are so weird. Like, if you talk to an LA songwriter who's all about lyrics, they would, and you tell them that song was gigantic and they didn't know it, it just would not compute because it's just crazy. All these bands that I loved growing up, like rock bands, there's always just something there's something like really special and shitty and charming. Like, look at fucking Ozzy Osbourne's voice.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, there's always something just a little, there's like this really definitive thing happening that's always a little off. Like, maybe feels a little like this shouldn't be as big as it is or something. Like that first Strokes record, that's a rock record. It sounds, the drums sound horrible. You know, and that's like, there's something really like, maybe that's the punk rock element of it. Like, okay, Black Flag, some of the worst sounding recordings I've ever heard, and some of my favorite recordings I've ever heard, you know. That doesn't like cover all of rock, but I just always think there's one element in a lot of these things that, like Pearl Jam, Eddie Vedder's voice is like so fucking weird.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about the other main topic, and it was, for me, social anxiety and networking and how we all deal with it. So I would say probably the thing that set me back the most in my career, not to tout my drumming, but I'm less worried about working on that. And a big reason why I go to therapy and a lot of things is to work on my social anxiety, which is surprising because I have a podcast where I literally record myself talking to strangers a lot of the time. And so it's like so counterintuitive, but it forces me to practice getting out of my shell. Yeah, I mean, Eric, you always come across so relaxed and you're always so pleasant, and it seems like you've kind of made your little impact in the Chicago area music scene. Do you deal with social anxiety, imposter syndrome? Do you have trouble walking up to people knowing it'll benefit your career if you make this contact? And we can get into networking and cheesiness and all that authenticity, but like, what's your view on all this?
To be completely transparent, I'm shocked that you feel that way about me.
Really?
I mean, I'm honored, but no, I totally identify as like an introvert. The only time I'm really extroverted is like when I'm in the security behind my drum set. Like that's the only time where I'm like, okay, I can be a little bit.
It's like
I have more social battery, you know. It's like I'm fully recharged. But no, I mean, I totally feel the social anxiety. Like I am very nervous to approach people, especially people that I like want to or need to impress, or, you know, like people who I know are going to be important people that I should connect with. That is always something that is terrifying for me. And usually, to be totally honest, I shut down more than I should.
Me
Something
too. Me too.
Yeah, I really genuinely struggle with it.
I mean, that's why I love this podcast so much, because it forces me I have a reason to get to know someone. It's like,
yeah,
I want to get to know these drummers. I want to, like, if I saw them at a club or a show, and I'd be like, these are the conversations. Like, if I look up to someone, I do want to ask what their favorite records are, and I do want to. But how do you do that at a bar? Just like, you know, you got to get to know them first, and then they're
What's
just
your
like, I
favorite
don't know.
rudiment?
Yeah. Which luckily I never ask those questions on this podcast. But it's like I never get to that point, because it's like I don't want to. I always go to I'm a burden. Anyone I approach, I'm a burden to them immediately. And this podcast has been so great, because I force them to talk to me for an hour, and they have to answer my questions or else they come across as a jerk. No, but it's been so good. But then also, a lot of people that listen to this podcast incorrectly think that I'm a very good conversationalist. I can blah, blah, blah. Like, if I'm out of my element at a club and I don't have the safety of my questions, the podcast, the whatever, like, I'm not Mr. Sociable. So I don't want people, if you're shy and you hear me talk to all these people, I'm a wreck. But I've kind of leaned into it lately, where I have ADHD and my brain just works differently than some people. Some people, it's not like they're any more cool and collected or suave than me. Just the way that their brain works when they're in that kind of social environment is on a different wavelength, and it's totally fine. Like, when I'm around people that I feel comfortable, I never get nervous. You know, it's around the people that I don't know that, I become this completely different person. But I'm trying to lean into just be the weird version of me, like be an earnest version of weird me. And if someone comes up to me and say they like cannons, or in some way know me, like in the situation I'm like above them in their eyes and they're awkward towards me, it's never like, fuck this person. It's always like, that's endearing. I get it. I never not like them because of it. You know, maybe it makes me feel weird at first. So that's why I avoid walking up to people, because I don't like to give that energy. But I also, sorry, I keep talking so much, guys, but this is what I've been dealing with, is that it's not about what you say to people. It literally isn't. It's the old adage, which is like, people don't remember what you say. They remember how you made them feel. And I've been really working on this reverse charisma thing, where the people that you like, when they come up to you, you're like, there's something about that. It's because they make you feel interesting. They make you feel like you're charismatic. And so if you just give the energy off of like, dude, I think you're awesome. And like, I mean, not like fanboy, but like make them feel like, fuck yeah, I'm awesome. They're going to like you. So you don't have to overanalyze what you say or whatever. And so I've been forcing myself to go out a lot more and trying to talk to strangers. And usually it works if you're just earnest.
You're a brave man.
Yeah, I think that being genuine is the biggest thing. Like, I think that there are probably people that see maybe a drummer they look up to in a room and they think like, oh, I can become this guy's friend, so I'm going to go like blow smoke up their ass or whatever. And that will never work. You know, that's just
it's a fine line between like complimenting them.
Like,
And then like, because you don't want to be like, dude, oh my God, but I was talking to, once this podcast's out, people have probably heard it, but I was talking to Marco, the drummer for last week, about when I met Steven Droz for the first time. And I just walked up and I was like, I think you're amazing, dude. Your drum sounds changed a lot for me. Like, do you? We were backstage. It was like the catering thing. And then I walked away. I'm like, I didn't want to like do the fanboy, but I knew that I wouldn't have a genuine conversation with him at that moment because I was such a fanboy. Yeah. So I just made him feel good, then walked away.
I definitely deal with social anxiety, but I feel like I experience it less in music because I'm so like comfortable and like I've been doing this for so long and I feel it's such a big part of my identity. Like, I talk to my therapist about this all the time. Like, if the day comes when I stop playing music, that's going to be like, that's like a death, you know, like that's like the death of an identity. That's like going to be like mourning the loss of a human being. Like, I don't know who I am otherwise. But on the flip side of that, you know, like I have a 4-year-old son. I feel way more anxious going to pick him up from school sometimes when I'm surrounded by people who don't understand my life, who don't understand what I do for work, who look at me and think like, oh, this kid's dad like goes out and like fucking parties or whatever on the road. Like, you know what I mean? And like, that's not it. Like on the last Say Anything run, there were 5 kids on the road with us, you know, like it's, I get way more anxiety in those situations than anything.
That's crazy. It is literally the exact opposite for me. I think it's maybe the imposter syndrome that I'm still dealing with. But
I deal with that all the time.
Yeah.
But when I'm at a grocery store, like I am kind of that person where if I'm in a coffee line and I like someone's shoes, I'll just say, and I'll end up talking to them. Like, I'm an introvert in a lot of ways, but sometimes I will force myself to just like shoot the shit with someone. But if I'm at a venue and I know there's a lot of musicians that obviously if I'm at a party and there's a musician there, I'll beeline to them and talk to them because they're like, oh, we have something to talk about. But weirdly enough, I get more anxious around my peers because that's when I get like, they're going to find me out or they're going to watch me play live one day and they're going to be like, oh, that guy's ghosting.
Well, there's a reason I don't invite my friends to shows.
Oh, yeah.
Not never. I think I used to. Now I don't. I rarely invite
I think you actually told me the other night not to come because I was like, how close is the venue? I'm already going to be going. And you're like, don't, dude. And I got it. I wasn't offended.
I think there was a time when I would invite everyone to every show ever. And now there's like, maybe I'm like, there's 1 or 2 people I'd really want to see this because I think they'd like fully understand whatever it is that I'm doing, you know, or like get something out of it. But now I'm like, I definitely get anxiety around that. Like, I remember there was when I was touring with Joseph, Aaron Sterling played on the record we were touring on, and he came to the LA show, and I was like, oh, great, you know.
I was at that show. You killed it, by the way, so I'm going to, you know, he was like, impressed, I guarantee.
It was, not fun. But, I definitely deal with imposter syndrome a lot, but I kind of look at that and like the social anxiety aspect as like totally separate things for me. You know, like they don't really I don't know that they really co-mingle.
Oh, they're hanging out all the time with me. They're best friends.
Dude, this is like, you know, I don't know, for anyone who's never done therapy or seen a therapist, like something that I know a lot of, this is very common in therapy, but like identifying these things that go on in your head as in personifying them, you know, like, the imposter Ben really is dreading this show because Mike and Eric are going to come, you know, like sit down and have a conversation with whatever imposter Ben looks like. Close your eyes, do some like 5 minutes of breath work or something, and like have a conversation with that character, you know, because that's what it's all, they're all characters. Like, it's all just this bullshit happening in your head that everyone's got. There's a motive everywhere, you know.
Yeah, it's almost like the people that have the overconfidence in situations, it's off-putting you know,
Yeah.
and the people that maybe are shy and they come out a little bit, those are the people at the party that I'm like, I have the better conversations with and actually have a genuine connection with.
Yeah.
So just my therapist has mostly just given me grace to be myself. Because it's like, if you're, I mean, anyone can relate to this. You're in a situation where you're not comfortable and then you end up bringing something weird up in a conversation, or you say the wrong thing, or when the third person walks away and it's just you and the person, you like, I don't know what to say. And so you say the most awkward thing ever. Like, you have to acknowledge that that's not you. That is, so like when you leave and you're like, what? I'm a fucking idiot. Like, why did I clam up? It's like, no, the you that's most genuinely you is when you're in a confident situation with people you know that you can be yourself around. That's you. So I don't beat yourself up if you fuck up a social situation, because it's just like, yeah, you erred or maybe whatever, but that wasn't like you're awkward. It's just that situation sucked, and we've all
Right.
been there, and I'll have many more. Someone happened to me very recently. So who
You're just
cares?
describing me on your podcast right now.
and then I invited him back on, and to be honest, like as of
Why
right
did
now,
he
it's
say that
not
Olivia
going well.
Rodrigo isn't rock?
Unbelievable. I wonder if this is like a chicken or egg scenario. Are we introverts because we play drums, or do we play drums because we're introverts?
I don't identify as an introvert. I definitely
sure.
don't. I want to go to a bar every night.
You
I
are
wanna,
very social,
Yeah?
yeah.
Oh,
I want to
okay.
sit at the bar. I want to talk to the old guy. You know, like actually
Yeah, yeah.
that's an interesting thing, is like I'm way more inclined to talk to the old guy sitting next to me than if it were like if I didn't know Ben and he sat down next to me at the bar, I wouldn't be like,
sure.
oh, I like your shoes, or you know, I wouldn't do that. But like the old guy, I'd be like, this guy's got some fucking stories probably, and I want to get him out of him.
Yeah, dude.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that's like
I could never.
I definitely like going out. I like going to dinner all the time. I like going to bars, even if I'm like not drinking or something. You know, like I like doing that stuff.
Well, you have to practice that stuff too. Like, cause I identified whenever I was with my last few partners, nothing against them. They didn't force me to stay home, but I just became that like, the I love you man character, Paul Rudd, where just you let a lot of your social life atrophy. Cause I would be on tour. And then when I would come home, I'm like, I don't want to go out. I don't want to be surrounded by 12 people all the time. So I'll just hang out with my partner and it'd be great. But now for everyone, I'm aggressively single, and I've been really leaning into all my musician friendships around the city. And it was weird at first because I wasn't used to like having all this social interactions. But after because if you don't hang out with people a lot, when you do hang out with them, it's not like natural right away.
Dude,
And
look
then-
at COVID. Look what happened to everyone's social abilities
Exactly.
after COVID. Everyone's a fucking weirdo now. Like,
But even
we
like the
can't
last
talk to
like
people.
few months when I've been like, no, I go out like probably 4 or 5 nights a week, go to shows, meet up with people, whatever. And now it's just like, it's a muscle you have to practice. So like I'm talking to people
it's
that
good
are
for you.
That's super real. Yeah.
I guess I'm talking to myself right now, but it's you have to practice that stuff. And it does and you're going to have setbacks and feel weird and be like, fuck, I wish, because sometimes for me, I don't go up to people and try and be a social because I feel my energy's off that night, or I'm aware of it, that I'm in my head. And I'm like, sometimes it's better to not introduce yourself than to do it in a situation where it's not the right situation, that the way that your brain works and the way you interact with people. Like maybe wait till they're at a coffee shop and it's just you and him or you and her, and you can actually like get to know them, as opposed to introducing yourself if you see them at a show and there's like 15 people around them. You know, it's like choose your battles, because sometimes if you're not really, I don't want to put that pressure on people, but just like if you don't feel comfortable reaching out to people in a certain way, then don't do it that way.
There's something Zach Albetta said on the Working Drummer podcast where he was talking about networking, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it stuck with me because he was talking about how networking is like not a great term for him. That feels like approaching people with this idea of like, oh, I got to network with this person. It feels like you're going into this relationship with like an ulterior motive. And instead it should just be built around like, oh, I just want to like get to know this person. I want to be their friend. And like when you look at the people that you work with in a professional setting, it's usually people that you become friends with. You know, it's very rarely like this strictly business conversation. You know, sometimes it is, but at least for me, that's really helped open me up to like just kind of putting the networking brain out of there. Because I think there's all this pressure in the music industry to be like, oh, you got to go out and you got to network and you got to like shake hands and meet people. And to me, it's like, no, it's if you look at it more as like you're in a community and you're just building these friendships and these relationships, then it takes a lot of that pressure off.
Yeah.
There's not
go
like
to a show with a
protocol.
friend and ask your friend to invite someone you don't know who they're friends with. You know what I mean? Like,
Love that. Yeah.
that you're just like, I've always
That's
hated
great
the
advice.
term networking.
That's really great.
I hate it. But like, you are building a network, you're building some sort of support system, but calling it networking feels so like goofy and
Manufactured.
disingenuous. Like like you said, it feels like there's always an ulterior motive there. But like, if you like are going to a show with your friend, and they invite one of their friends, chances are you're already going to have a lot of common ground. You're not you're not spotting some dude from across the room or some girl across the room where you're like, oh, she plays guitar for so-and-so, I'm going to go talk to her. And then you have no idea who you're going to be hanging out with then, because then if that person comes, maybe they know that person on the other side of the room. They did a gig together and they can make like a genuine introduction and be like, this is Mike. I swear he's not a psycho.
Well, same with like, for a great example, I went out with you and then I met Natalie,
Dude,
who was in Joseph.
and that was a great night.
Yeah, and she's awesome.
Yeah, and that was, I texted Natalie separately. I was like, oh, we're going to this show. Come out,
Sure.
And she's awesome and she will always hang out. So it's just, I think it can be as easy as that. And people, maybe if they're moving to a city like Los Angeles or something and they're move in and they're like, oh, I have to network. It's like, man, that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself, especially if you deal with any social anxiety or like, for me, I deal with depression a lot. And that's why I started seeing a therapist. And a big part of the equation of that is like going out and having genuine social moments where you can like turn off and just like be with your friends and, like you said, exercise this muscle that maybe you don't feel inclined to do all the time. But when you do it, it's like going to the gym or something. When you're dreading walking in, you walk out and you're like, oh, I feel like I could do that again. Or like, there's like this extra motivation, and that helped me a lot, especially after COVID, prioritizing just socializing and seeing a friend every week. I'm sure there's been like work and other genuine connections that were made that will ultimately like benefit me professionally.
And I've said it on the podcast before, but authenticity is never cringy. And so if I meet someone and they're just odd, that oddness on someone that I can tell they're just trying to be this thing is cringy. But if they're just this person, it's so endearing. And it's, if anything, I like them more because they just embrace their weirdness, and
that's something I didn't learn until like the last few years, I took a lesson with Victor and Drizzo recently, which was incredible. And he was kind of talking about the same thing, like he told me that he struggled with the same stuff, like imposter syndrome and stuff. I'm like, dude, you look at Victor and Drizzo and no one's doubting that guy, but like this is not like a unique thing to anyone. This happens at every level and probably, I would assume, in every profession, in every industry. Like I'm sure there's Wall Street brokers who are like, how did I get here? Why, like there's a lot more negativity in that world, but like
probably the same amount of cocaine though.
I'm sure that this is nothing, that's not something unique to music is imposter syndrome, like this is sports and business and it's just a horrible, crippling thing to experience. But like,
I mean, to go back to what I said about Eric and then him surprised that I said that, there are some people that come up to me that will be like, you're a great conversationalist. Oh my gosh. And in my head, but it's but what I'm saying is like, everyone is going through that in their head. Even the most collected person. I mean, a lot of times some of the nicest people I know tend to be the most neurotic. And when I get to know them, they have a lot of anxiety, but in a social, lead with kindness. The dude that like, don't try and be too cool. Don't try and make the joke at someone's expense. If someone comes up and it was like, man, dude, watching your show was super inspiring, dude. You're a killer drummer. Like, honestly, that's great. And then if you just lead with that and like, don't put negativity out there. Don't talk about the opening band. Just like be the dude that like, he's just a kind, cool person. It really does go a long way. It's a lot of times it's not what you say. It is the energy you're putting out. And a lot of times, if I think back to like, for some reason I didn't connect with that person and I'll think back to what energy was I giving out. I was probably like doing 2-word sentences and hoping that they would latch onto something, and then I could turn on, and then we could have a conversation. But it's like I wasn't giving a lot, so why would they want to talk to me?
Or you were
And
like, what snare wires were you using?
Yeah,
And they're like,
talking about gear is how's the weather of the drum world. Just don't. If anything, take a chance.
That's all I got, man.
But seriously, a lot of times, the last thing I want to talk about is gear. That's why on this podcast, we really
100%.
don't talk about drum stuff. It's more like the career itself and the self-sabotage kind of shit that I talk about on the show.
I mean, bringing this all back to a career, like everything that you're saying, everything that all of us are saying is like, these are all characteristics that make you a desirable hire for anything. Like, people want to be on the road with someone who is going to be genuine, who is going to be themselves, who knows their own limits, who knows when they need time by themselves. Like, I go out to dinner by myself probably like more days than not on tour because I need a break. Because I know that if I continue hanging out all the time, I'm going to be spent and I'm going to be horrible to be around. Like,
and you're going to say something short because you're tired, like without
and
really
you're going to piss
meaning
someone
it.
off, and there's no reason to do any of that. Like, you need to be able to know yourself and know your limits and know your social capacity to like be on the road and want people to want to be around you, like, it's just not gonna, you can't go out and be 100% on all the time, because you're gonna burn yourself out and you're gonna burn other people out. And
it's part of the job. It sucks, but I think people need to work on themselves just as much as they work on their rudiments. You have to be good upstairs in order to, or at least have awareness and be working on things to get this job done.
Yeah.
And I also say the thing that gave me more grace with social anxiety and stuff is most people that are really good at art are neurotic, kind of off the wall people, which is why we chose the arts. And so
there's some sort of neurodivergence happening somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of times, and I've been lucky enough to meet a lot of drummers through this podcast and just through traveling with different bands. I've met a lot of people that I grew up admiring, thinking they were Mr. fucking Johnny Bravo, James Dean. And you meet them and they're sweethearts, but they're kind of awkward, shy people. And it's
we're a bunch of dorks.
We're fucking losers. But you go into every situation thinking that these people that are also doing what you're doing are these cool, collected people. It's very rare that I meet like a guy walks in with a leather jacket that's successful at music, that's also good at what they do. It's just, it's like, it's really weird people. So I'm saying, don't be overanalyzing if interactions don't go well, or if it seems weird. They're probably just as neurotic as you are about this whole thing.
Also, I think that like that taking that thing, like, like when I was a kid, I would fight against maybe some of the stuff that I would look at my playing as weird, and I would try and straighten it out or make it more like so-and-so. Lean into that shit. Like, that's how people get a sound. And that's like, what I was saying earlier about like rock bands. All my favorite rock bands, there's always something just a little off, something weird about the recordings, that like the records would not be the same without that. It's the same thing. And I just would look at Travis Barker or whatever when I was a kid and be like, oh, well, I have to play exactly like that. But like, I think all the time about like, I wonder what kind of awesome stuff I extinguished because I was trying to be more like someone else who I admired.
Probably a lot. The answer is probably a lot.
There's probably a lot. There's a lot.
Same with me.
Wow. Yeah. That's really interesting to think about.
Yeah, because there are sometimes I listen to ideas that I had in high school. Like my mom, a few Christmases ago, she sent me like every CD burned of all my bands I was in. And funny enough, I actually don't even have. Yeah, it was awesome.
Oh my God.
I don't even know how I listened to them. Maybe I was in a friend's car or something, but like I don't even have access to CD. I can't play a CD. But I listened to some of the stuff on, like, it would maybe go back to Pure Volume and listen to some of our links and stuff.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, like, at the time I was just a Blink-182 ripoff guy, but I listened to someone, like, in my head, that's what I was. And then I listened back to some of those recordings and I'm like, where'd that fill idea come from? Like, that's awesome. And I have no idea where I don't know, maybe I just stopped myself from being that kind of drummer, but I'm like, fuck, I wish for all the times I wish I could Men in Black my punk era out of my brain. Sometimes I wish I could go back and un-Men in Black some of the things that I apparently did Men in Black.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Totally. Dude, I mean, I think that I grew up loving emo, and there was a time period where that was like very cringy, like people didn't want that, and I love a lot of those records. And now I find myself, my main gig is with one of those bands where like my time spent in my parents' house learning those records, you know, nonstop, like got me that gig.
You can say it. Say anything. It's an awesome band.
Say anything.
Yeah. And also, I was going to say, Eric before was talking about how much he loves K-Flay. I think you're the one drummer that with K-Flay that he hasn't seen live, but he was talking about how all of K-Flay's drummers are awesome. So,
well, except for one.
I don't want to hear
as
it.
of now,
I'll send you. I have some desk recordings. I'll send you a desk recording.
Oh, I'd love to hear that. That's awesome.
And that's the show. If you're listening on a platform that allows ratings and reviews, do that. It helps more people find the show, so it'll get bigger and better, and hopefully I'll have a chance to sell out one day. But you'll be an OG listener that can brag to all your friends. Anyways, why don't you go and check us out at bigfatsnaredrum.com and follow us on all the socials. Just search for Big Fat Snare Drum and you will find us. The show is edited in part using iZotope RX Audio Editor. It's amazing, so go check that out at iZotope.com. And thanks again to Gunnar Olsen for the theme music. Bye.